Gandhiji's fundamental principle was Ahimsa because he believed that it was an eternal tool. India, I mean, Ahimsa is not something that Mahatma Gandhi discovered or invented for himself. India was never new to Ahimsa. Gautama Buddha based his fundamentals on a whole religion. Buddhism was built on Ahimsa, non-violence. And so did the Jain Munis, who went to the extent of even avoiding killing insects and ants and small creatures, and even, bacteria and the things that you can't even see. And then we had in India kings who ruled based themselves on Ahimsa. King Ashoka turned to non-violence and Ahimsa, anti-Buddhism, to clear his conscience after the death and the blood and the gore of the Kalinga War. So Ahimsa is not new to India. We always, it was a part of the Indian mindset. It was a part of the Indian genes. It was a part of the Indian ethos. And neither is non-violence new to the world. 2000 years ago, Christ asked us to turn the other cheek. He said, it is not enough to love your neighbor. Any murderer, any terrorist, any killer, any can love his neighbor. That is so difficult. That's what Christ said 2000 years ago. So it's not a new philosophy. So from the times when people spoke about an eye for an eye, the ideal of Ahimsa was always there in our blood. But it was never practiced the way Mahatma Gandhi practiced it. Non-violence was always seen as something between an individual and another. You hit me on my cheek, I turn the other cheek. The Good Samaritan, helping people, individuals in distress. What Mahatma Gandhi did was to turn this philosophy, this ethos of non-violence, basically an ethos of to be practiced between individuals and individuals, into something to be practiced between nations. Democracy is a rule where nobody should be left out. It's not merely a rule by a majority. Majorities can be transient. Today, a majority would vote to the left. Tomorrow, they would vote to the center. Tomorrow, day after, to the right. It might change. It does not mean that when somebody votes for the left, the rest should be excluded, or when somebody votes for the center, the left and the right should be left out and ignored, or when somebody votes for the right, the rest should be voted. It's transient. You rule for 5 years, you rule for 10 years, you rule for 15 years, and somebody else takes over. That's what an election does. So even when you have a majority, and I think that's very important to understand, Mahatma's understanding of democracy, you rule for and on behalf of all the people, and that is what democracy means. Rule for the people, for everyone. In 1942, as I said earlier, Mahatma Gandhi and the freedom movement started the Quit India movement, and within 5 years, the British had quit India. Today, we have political freedom, but there is poverty, so much of poverty amongst us. So many poor living amongst us. COVID has made things worse. People without jobs, unemployment rising, people committing suicides, farmers not sure how much money they can get for their produce. Mahatma Gandhi also said that poverty is the first form of violence. Violence can take many forms. Poverty is a form of violence. So there's so much poverty here today. And unfortunately, to add to that, there's so much of corruption today. There's terrorism today, violent terrorism. There is so much of communalism today. There's so much of casteism today. There's a lack of cleanliness today. So today, as we remember the Mahatma who was born 150 years ago, I think there's a need for a new Quit India movement. And there's a need for us to start a new movement, a new Quit India movement. This is, of course, not a political movement. It's a movement to cleanse us of all that has crept into our polity, into our life, into our culture, into our society over the years. And So we must say today and declare that poverty, quit India. We cannot have poverty. Poverty is a form of violence. We cannot have poverty amongst our men. So today I think we must take a firm resolve that as, as we as we observe the 150th year of a man whom we can't believe lived in flesh and blood on this earth, who walked in flesh and blood on this earth. The resolve we must take is to say quit India again, poverty quit India, corruption quit India. Corruption has been sort of weakening India down the decades. It's a part, seems to be a part of our life so much. So we have to steadfastly say corruption quit India. Terrorism is taking its toll, and there are many forms of terrorism. We should say terrorism quit India. One of India's continuing evil is casteism. The feeling that I am of a higher caste, you are of a lower caste. I am a Varna, Savarna, you are not. You belong to a lower caste, you belong to an outcast. Casteism we must declare, quit India. And communalism. You are a Hindu, I am a Christian, he is a Muslim, we are different. That communalism is a poison that's growing again in our midst. We must resolutely declare communism quit India. Corruption quit India, terrorism quit India, casteism quit India, communalism quit India, poverty quit India. I think that is on this day when we are celebrating or observing Mahatma Gandhi's 150th or 1.5 centuries after his birth. That is the message, and that's a message when you say quit India. I use that term in a narrow sense. It's applicable right across the world. It's applicable to globally as much as to India, and it is applicable to the 2020s and beyond, to everybody. Poverty has to quit the world. Corruption has to quit the world. Terrorism has to quit the world. Casteism and communalism, color and racism. It may not be casteism there, but communalism exists. And color and race exist. That is also to quit the world.